Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Today we are going to talk about Buddhist psychology, the Buddhist psychology of suffering that the Buddha spoke of. And of course, according to the Buddhist way of thinking, the suffering simply is the conflict between our emotions and reality. The reality of things, the Buddha points out as the determinism itself, which is that everything that arises due to the presence of the necessary conditions. And it ceases with the cessation of the conditions. So this means it comes into being and it goes away. And coming into being and going away is anicca. It's like a wave. A wave comes up and goes away. But do we say that a wave exists? It's incorrect to say that it does not exist, and it's incorrect to say that it exists, because it just comes and goes. Like the wind, it comes and goes. So anything that just comes and goes is anicca. And because it is anicca, means it is not strictly existing, nor is it not existing. It just comes and goes. And that doesn't really satisfy us. We want something existing. And because it doesn't satisfy us, we become dissatisfied and unhappy as a result. That dissatisfaction and unhappiness is the dukkha. And that is the reality of things. So our emotions want something which is unrealistic. And this is why the conflict. So the real cause of the unhappiness is not the reality, but the emotion that wants something unrealistic. That is the tanha, the urge, the emotional urge. And so the Buddha points out that the only way to be free of this dukkha or unhappiness is to remove the emotion. And of course, normally people thought that emotion cannot be removed. It can only suppressed. It can be suppressed but not removed. But the Buddha pointed out that it can be removed. And it is simply by realizing that the emotion is only an activity, and that activity can be stopped. So when we are fully conscious of the activity automatically stops by being aware of it. It's a disturbance. And so the stopping of that activity is the stopping of the dukkha. And so, in other words, it is by calming the mind, making the mind tranquil, that all unhappiness comes to an end. So that tranquility comes as nirvana. So nirvana really Nirvana. Nir means non, vana means shaking. the non-shaking of the mind. And this is the meaning of nirvana. So, there is a method of doing this, and this method is to become aware of the problem, to become aware of the cause of the problem, and to become aware of the solution of the problem, and then how it can be solved. That is what is called the Four Noble Truths, or the fourfold. I translate it as the fourfold supernormal reality. Because when we speak about realities, different people can have different realities. The mad person, the insane person has a different reality. The normal person has another reality. Or we can even say that a person who wants to go and rob a bank will have one reality, and the policeman will have a different reality, and the court, the judge will have another kind of reality. And so different people can have different realities, and we also have different cultures having different realities. But here, when we speak about the supernormal reality that the Buddha is speaking about, is to realize that our emotions are going against reality, and this is why we are suffering. And once we have understood this reality, we are able to get rid of the suffering. So, the reality, the supernormal reality, is the reality that is aware of the cessation of suffering. And so, here when we speak of nirvana and the way to nirvana, we are talking about a special reality. And of course, when we speak about this reality, we have to speak about the cognitive aspect, the affective and the active. This is why when we speak about nirvana also, we speak about this in these three ways. So, this reality as seen in the cognitive way is really the theory of perception, where we begin to think of how perception takes place, and that the Buddha explains in terms of the Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara and Vijnana. That means, say, light falling on the eye, the first experience is whether it is pleasant or whether it is unpleasant, or whether it is neutral. And that experience is what is called Vedana. And then, of course, we are able to distinguish between colors that we see, whether it is blue or red or white, whatever the color is. And becoming aware of the colors is what is called sanya. Then out of the colors we begin to form images of things. And that formation of images of objects, that is what is called sankhara. Sankhara is the creation of objects out of the colors. And then we are able to distinguish between one object and another object. So distinguishing between one and another object is the vijnana. So that whole process of cognition is that. And once we have cognized that, then we begin to think and reason out about these things, whether it is something useful to us or whether it is something harmful to us, and whether it is something dangerous. So when we begin to think in those terms, then we begin to react emotionally. If it is useful, we desire it. If it is harmful, we hate it. If it is dangerous, we are frightened of it. So like that, the emotion is aroused as a result of our way of thinking. And then, according to the emotion, we begin to act. If it is something useful, we want that and we go to get it. And if it is unpleasant, we want to get rid of it. Or if it is dangerous, we want to run away from it. So like that, the action follows our emotion. So this way, by understanding it properly and fully, we begin to realize that this is what is happening. But it is with this awareness that we begin to act in the proper way, with the mind is calmed. When we are aware of this reaction, we stop the reaction. It is by stopping the reaction that the unhappiness and suffering comes to an end. So, when we think of the stopping, that means we can define nirvana as the absence of this cognitive process. Not that the cognitive process is absent in the sense that we don't see objects, but we can see objects, but at the same time we can see that we are seeing, not that there is an object, but that it is the perception of an object. This way we become detached from that, and the emotional arousal doesn't occur. And because the emotional arousal doesn't occur, then we are not agitated, worried, and we are not going to act on that. And so, that is the situation in nirvana, when the mind is calmed. And when we have understood how the suffering occurs and how it can stop, then we begin to act on that, and we begin to behave in the proper way. And with the behavior comes and the harmonious exercise. The harmonious exercise is learning to purify the mind by getting rid of the bad, wrong thoughts and to cultivate the good thoughts. And in doing that, we begin to become constantly aware of our mind and the mental process. And that awareness ultimately results in the complete disappearance of the reaction, which is Nibbana. And that is how the problem is solved. I hope you understood what was going on, and may you all be well, comfortable, peaceful, and happy.